Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we're here with episode 62, an episode I'm really excited to do. This weekend I got to attend my very first UFC event in Atlanta, Georgia at the State Farm Arena. Kamaru Usman defeating Joaquin Buckley by unanimous decision, and what a night it was. It was amazing. It was so much fun. We had a good amount of finishes. A lot of the fights were really solid. I did see that some people were kind of saying it wasn't the best card. The main card was not spectacular. There was about three or four fights that really were just kind of snoozers, and I'm gonna run through the whole card because I was watching it intently. But I think that most of the fights were really, really exciting, especially the prelims. The prelims had a lot of amazing back and forth fights, some crazy finishes, and overall it was a really, really solid night. The main event totally delivered like everyone hoped it would. And yeah, man, Kamaru Usman is back. He is right back at the top of the welterweight scene. I wasn't sure if he could do it with how long it's been since he won a fight and his big layoff and the what Joaquin Buckley looks like in his past few fights. I didn't think I didn't know if he was going to be able to pull off that win, and he was so dominant. It was unbelievable. He was getting booed in the arena because he was doing a lot of takedowns. And I was a little bit. I'm somebody who, when I'm watching on TV, I don't mind seeing the takedowns, but you have to understand that when you're in the arena and they're on the ground, you can't tell what's going on. You have to look at the jumbotron. You have to look at the TV because when they're in there, you can't see what kind of punches they're throwing, how they're moving around in the wrestling. You just can't tell. They're just sitting on the floor. So, if for any time there's any fence hugging and stuff, it really, really does suck to watch it in the arena. And that was my worry with going to a UFC fight. But I enjoyed it watching on the jumbotron. I thought that he was fighting really well and he looked incredible. It just wasn't the most exciting for the arena. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. He looked amazing, and every round was kind of similar. Where first half of the fight, he would it would be kind of back and forth trading, I guess you could say. And I think Joaquin Buckley in that first half was getting the better of most of their exchanges. He was the better striker on the night, I think, but it was still competitive. Usman was still trading with him, throwing big shots back as well. And then every time at about 3 minutes left, 2:30 left in the round, Usman would get the takedown. And Buckley was doing a good job of keeping him up for a bit, but he just didn't, he couldn't hold it all off forever. And as soon as Buckley was down, there was no shot he was going to get up. There was no shot he was going to be able to wrestle Usman off him. Usman was so strong and dominant on the ground, it was crazy. It was a phenomenal performance. So he won for me every round until the fifth round, where I could be wrong, but I don't think that there was any takedown in the fifth round. And the fifth round was probably the most exciting of the fight. That was one that Buckley did win. Like I said, they were trading, and he had some of his best work in that round. But it was a really, really fun fight. And as for where we go on from here, I think that Usman, a fight that I really like to see is Belal Muhammad. Belal, coming off his title loss, he still does deserve a top five or so fight, I think, for any champion, who loses their belt, they still deserve a good fight. Usman just beat, I think, Buckley, who was number 7. He was already ranked number 5 himself. I don't know if he really deserved that, but he's definitely going to hold on to that ranking, if not go up. I think he could fight Belal. I think that you've got Shavkat around there. I think you got Ian Gary around there, Sean Brady. But the fight that I think most people are agreeing is that we'd like to see is Kamaru Usman Belal Muhammad. So let's see if that happens. I'd like to see. I think it could be awesome. As for Joaquin Buckley, this doesn't really hurt him that much. He's still a top 10 welterweight. Usman was just another beast, and then we just saw there was some levels between them. But it was awesome. I was really impressed by both. I still thought that was one of Buckley's best performances. It was just that he was in with an absolute monster. And I mean, like, you've seen all the memes, like the last Unk left. I mean, Usman's 38, but he really does still got it. I was so impressed by how sharp and strong and dominant he was. And I'll say it right now. I expect him to fight for a title before the end of his career. As of right now, this is one win. He's not getting the title shot next. So he's still got to get through another win or two before he can get that. But I really do see him fighting for the title again. He was so good. And just seeing it live, it was a sight to see. The arena was packed out. It really was sold out. I was moving around the arena a lot. If you were seeing my videos on Twitter, they were all kind of from similar spots. My seats were up high because tickets were a bit expensive. But, I was moving around, and it wasn't totally full. I'd say during the prelims it was about maybe 70-80% full. It was slowly getting more. As soon as 10 p.m. hit, when we got the main card, it packed out and there was no seats left. It was fully sold out and it was awesome. It was a really, really awesome crowd. There was a lot of booing because, like I said, there was a lot of stinkers on the main card, and I was a little bit upset that there were so many decisions on the main card, and that's mainly because I took the metro to get to the fight, and then I had to the trains closed because the fights went for so long. They started the card at 10 p.m. The fights didn't end until 1:30. And the train stopped running at 1:30. So I was kind of stranded and had to pay like $80 to get an Uber back to where I needed to go. So that really, really sucked. But lessons learned. Next time I just got to drive to the arena. But yeah, it was a really awesome night. Like I said, I just wish that they could have started it earlier because the event didn't start until 7. We were there until 1:30. But it was awesome. It was really cool to just be in that arena with all the different fans. I talked to a lot of people, which I don't really get to about UFC. There's not a lot of times you get to interact with other fans, and it was just really, really fun to be in that environment and see other people who were just like fully into this sport. And man, it was awesome. Seeing the Bob O'Reilly play at the start of the event it really was a great memory to have. So I enjoyed my time a lot. The only thing I was sad about is that there was no Bruce Buffer. I know he wasn't available, but man, I would have loved to hear It's Time. But Joe Martinez was great. I'm still a big fan of him, and it was really, really cool to get to see him out there. Rest of the card, Rose Namajunas, Miranda Maverick was a great fight. It was a really great fight. Coming off of Edmund Shabazian, in a not super great fight against Audrey Petrosky, I thought he looked decent. He had some exciting moments. I think in the third round he had a good flurry for a minute or so that it was exciting. But most of that it was pretty boring, and the crowd really needed some energy. And Namajunas Maverick kind of delivered that. Some really, really exciting wrestling in that fight. And it was one that I wasn't sure, honestly, going into the third round if I had Rose up. I know that a lot of people, it was, I don't know, in the arena, it just seemed like I gave Maverick the first round. I don't really like those 30-27 cards at all. I think Maverick got at least one of the first 2 rounds. The third round was completely Rose. But the first 2 rounds, I think that there's an argument in both of those to give it to Miranda Maverick. I loved her Top Gun walkout. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, Thug Rose is back. And, she's still top of that flyweight division. I think that she's not too far out from a title fight. She's such a sweet character. I mean, like her post-fight speech was awesome. She had a huge pop in the Atlanta crowd. And that was a really fun fight, I thought. Good co-main. Like I said, Shabazian, good win, but wasn't the most exciting. Cody Garbrandt versus Raoni Barcelos was really fun. Cody Garbrandt had huge support in the crowd. I think that Barcelos did win, but you know what? It was a close fight. He got the unanimous decision, 29-28. That's how I had it. I gave Garbrandt the first round. I thought the second and third. I thought the third you totally went to Barcelos, and the second one you could go either way, but probably Barcelos. But it was a really fun fight, and it is kind of this thing like Cody Garbrandt was so special for that one fight, and then since then he's just kind of been, so-so. But Barcelos is putting together a really, really solid run here, beating Peyton Talbot, beating Cody Garbrandt. He called out Rob Font, which is a decent fight, but yeah, he's kind of knocking on those rankings. If I'm being honest, if he gets a few more good wins. He is in bantamweight, which is a pretty loaded division, but who knows? He was really, really exciting on the night. That was one of the better fights on the main card. You had Mansour Abdul Malik versus Cody Brundage, which for the first 2 rounds was a snoozer, and then the third round, Abdul Malik just unleashes on Brundage, throws him down the ground, and just beats him to a pulp and gets the finish. That was crazy. Really excited to see that one. Main card opener was a fight that I was excited for. It was probably the weakest of the night. I thought was Alonzo Menefield versus Umar Sy, which was horrible, completely fence hugging. Menefield deserved the decision. It was even hard to score just because of how little happened. Sy had a good second round, but it was just fence hugging. Other than that, I thought Menefield won the first and the third. Just really a rough watch in the arena. Paul Craig of Rodolfo Bellato was a big point of controversy. And you know what? And this was hard for us to figure out in the arena because there's no commentary. So we don't really know what's going on. We're watching the replays on the Jumbotron saying, okay, so ref didn't call it a knockout. It wasn't late. Why did he not? Is that illegal? And I mean, maybe I'm just wrong, but I didn't think that it was illegal what Craig did. It was an accidental foul, so it's not like he was doing anything, I don't know what the nefarious in that or sinister. He was just doing the sibling kicks, trying to keep Bellato off of him and hit him on the chin with an up kick and knocked him out. And I mean, when he did that, the arena erupted, and it was a really scary knockout to see because Bellato's out, and I see some people saying that he was acting and he was faking, and I don't really like to say that about fighters. He looked like he really got knocked out there. But then he comes back to life and starts like kicking the ref, and he just doesn't know where he is, and it's not just like for a few seconds, like for a minute, he was just like so sporadic. It was really worrying, and I'm not sure why. And again, I'm sure they explained why it's illegal. To me, that looked like it was a fair knockout because Craig was on the ground, Bellato wasn't. If it was. If Bellato was on the ground, it'd be a different story. But Bellato was standing up. I don't see why it's any different. I guess you're not allowed to up kick them in the chin or up kick at all, even though they do it all the time. So I'm really not sure what happened, but yeah, so it was a no contest. Nobody in the arena, including myself, liked that it was a no contest. I think we all agree. We thought Craig should have gotten the knockout win there, but again, we didn't have the rule book with us. I don't really know the rule book to that extent, but I thought that it was a pretty crazy moment. Michael Chiesa, Court McGee was the first fight of the night that was really just kind of a snoozer. Yeah, Chiesa won every round, but it wasn't anything to write home about. Honestly, maybe the star of UFC Atlanta, as I expected, as everyone expected, my man Malcolm Wellmaker. What a knockout. What a knockout. I mean, everybody knew as soon as this fight was announced, like, man, they are really trying to just send Chris Mutino, to the Lion's Den. And I remember we were moving around trying to get to our seats, and we sit down. As soon as we sit down during that fight, boom, he puts him out cold. And I saw Chris Mutino only apparently made like $14K for it, which that really sucks. And UFC fighter pay is horrible because he just took 5 years off his life with that punch and is only going to get a couple quid for it, as the Brits would say. But I don't know. Wellmaker is just so entertaining. He's so much power and just explosiveness. That's really what it is. He's so explosive, and he is a real problem. And again, he's knocking on the door of something big. He's one of the biggest prospects in the UFC. I'm so happy that we got somebody from Georgia and we got somebody that could feature on this Atlanta card. And yeah, that was really fun to see. He had one of the biggest supports of the night, probably the biggest. And yeah, what a knockout he had, man. Jose Ochoa had a fantastic knockout of Cody Durden. I thought Durden, another Georgia boy, really great first round, and then Ochoa just started to get his stuff together towards the beginning of the second round and knocked him out. It was fantastic. Ricky Simone and Cameron Smotherman, that one wasn't the biggest on the night in terms of audience, but I thought it was a decent enough performance from Simon. I thought that he was fun the way he was wrestling, and he was really impressive to me. I gave Smotherman the third round where it got more exciting, but yeah, it was a fun fight. Phil Rowe, oh my goodness, and Anjay Lusa. I mean, coming into that fight, I thought Lusa was going to win. I gave Rowe the first round, it was closer, but then the second round, man, he just went crazy on him. Just like he killed him. And then the third round, he just unleashes on him and finishes him. That was one of the best fights of the night. It was insane. That really was just such an insane fight. And just to see that one, it was like, my goodness, like this is insane. Yeah, I keep on saying insane, but it really was, man. It was so much fun to see that one live, and just to see that brutality in the cage. Hell of a win for Phil Rowe. And then the card opener, Jamie Lynn Horth versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Great fight, really great opening fight. Wasn't really too familiar with either of their work, and it was an awesome night. It was a really awesome opener to the fight. I thought Horth looked fantastic. I gave Demopoulos the third round. But, I had a 29-28 for the Canadian. And, yeah, really strong way to kick off the night. And, man, it was an awesome 6.5 hours of fights. Like I said, I wish they could have started it earlier. And, there were some snoozers in there. But the fights that were there were really exciting. And it really was like one of my favorite memories of combat sports. Probably, maybe the best. Just because this is my first time going to a UFC event. And I had a blast. And hopefully, they did really good numbers. It was the second highest grossing North American fight night in UFC history, which I know they get close to that record every time now because ticket prices are just ballooning. So I'm sure that in Nashville next month, that'll be the second or first highest. It's just how it is. But man, I mean, they did a really great crowd. I'm hopeful that it was good enough for them to say, okay, we're going to keep on coming back to Atlanta more consistently because they haven't been in 5 or so years. So maybe even more than that. So hopefully they come back soon enough. I'd love if we could get a pay per view here. I doubt it, but even if it's just a fight night, I'm fine with that. Because this, honestly, I was thinking about it. This may have been the biggest UFC fight night of the year. The only ones I would push over it are maybe the Israel Adesanya one. That probably was the biggest. Um, and the most loaded card. I also think that the London event with Leon Edwards, Sean Brady was up there. And of course, you have Khalil Roundtree versus Jamal Hill next week. But I think that this is probably one of the top three biggest fight nights of the year so far. Um, it was it was really really awesome, and it was almost like a mini pay per view. It was such a loaded card, and am so grateful that UFC chose a good one to bring to the ATL because it was an awesome night. But yeah, moving on from UFC Atlanta, I know I talked about a lot of my own experience with it, but it was just a blast. New York City, man. What a card and what a performance by Richardson Hitchins, but most of all, what a mismatch. We knew that these guys were not on the same level. Kambosos got this fight on accord of his star power and his name. And I mean, he's really still living off that Teofimo Lopez win. He's gotten two Haney fights, a Lomachenko fight, and a Richardson Hitchins fight now. I know Hitchins is not the biggest name, but still, he got two undeserving world title shots in that time. Didn't win either of them, but I mean, it is what it is. Um, Obviously, Kambosos, he deserves the respect. And he was saying, he was like, dude, I'll fight anyone. I fight the best of the best, and he really does. He doesn't duck anyone. If you look at who he's fought, win or lose, he's fought everyone. And you can't really knock him for that. But Hitchens looked fantastic. He was able to get a stoppage, which I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to do that, given his KO record and his power. But I mean, he just showed that you don't need to be the biggest puncher. You just need to know how to put your shots together and be precise and target that body. We know Kambosos doesn't like it to the body. That's his only stoppage loss. It comes from Vasily Lomachenko to the body. So we knew that was going to be a sensitive spot, and Hitchens was able to capitalize that. Honestly, a punch-perfect performance through 8 rounds. He was dominant and finishes it off, and that really shows he did have explosiveness because that wasn't, him wearing down on the body all night. Sure, he was doing good work, but it wasn't like he was hurting Kambosos up until that point. He hit him with a huge body shot out of nowhere that put Kambosos down, and he was not going to get back up. So, fantastic performance. He gets a great post-fight interview where he calls out Devin Haney on the mic. That was really, really funny. I do like that fight. For me, it is the Teofimo Lopez one. So those are the two best guys at 140 potentially right now. I know Teofimo was thinking about moving up. If Teofimo is staying at 140, I think that this is the fight to make. WBO IBF unification bout. Do it in New York. Do it at the Barclays Center. I think they're both from Brooklyn, so that is the perfect place to do it. Tremendous fight, and I mean, that's just a great fight, and I hope that they do that. I know that they are kind of friends, so it does make it a little bit, harder, but it doesn't seem like either of them are apart, withdrawing from doing the fight. Teofimo was there for a reason and got interviewed in the ring after, so it does seem like they want to do that. One of the most interesting parts about this fight was Hitchens saying, yeah, I'm a free agent now. It's been great. Thank you to Eddie and thank you to Matchroom. He was very grateful to them. But he's a free agent now. And so whatever fights next is next. And I was just really surprised that he was saying that. Because here's this guy who's, let's be fair, Eddie Hearn's done a lot for his career. He's got, to the world title fight. He's gotten him a hometown defense in New York City. Really built him up very well. And just for him again, his contract's up. He's going to be free agent, whatever. But I thought that was something that you don't say in the ring after you've won the fight. Do that afterwards when somebody asks you in an interview. To me, that was him calling out, saying, I'm a free agent, hit my line. That was what he was doing. He says, everyone's watching me on TV right now. All the other promoters and stuff. I need to get it out there. Obviously, Eddie Hearn said that he was disappointed in him saying that, and him saying he wants to do other ways. Obviously, he has free will; he's allowed to go other ways. But just to say, "Oh, thanks for all you guys have done. I'm leaving." I understand that. Turkey said that he will not work with Richardson Hitchins unless it's through Eddie Hearn. And this kind of just shows their loyalty to each other, I guess. I think it's a little bit over the top saying you won't work with Hitchins unless Matchroom's there. I don't know if you have to do that, but we'll see. Oscar De La Hoya says he's interested in Hitchins. I'm hopeful that Eddie re-signs Hitchins. I think that they had a good partnership there, and to be honest, with their roster, the 140-pound division, I think that Matchroom really is the best place to be. Of course, they don't have all the other champions and stuff, so maybe he wants a PBC deal because they've got Russell and they've got Alberto Puello, and he wants to do that. Gary Antonio Russell said, "Yeah, I'm interested." Or Antoine Russell, sorry, I'm interested in doing the Richardson Hitchins fight. And I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind that one bit. That's a great fight. So we'll see if anything actually comes to fruition with this. It all remains to be seen what is next for Hitchins. Excuse me. What's next for Kambosos? Kambosos seems like he could be retiring. He's had 2 fights in the last 3 months. Says he wants to spend some time with his family. I don't blame him. I don't think he'll ever get another world title shot. I don't know what the biggest fight he has left in his career is. I think it's probably fine if he hangs him up. But we'll see what he decides to do. But tremendous performance from Richardson Hitchins. Another man who fought on the night who had a great performance was none other than Andy Cruz, who has solidified his world title shot at the IBF champion Raymond Murataya, stopping Hironori Mishuro in 5 rounds, looking solid for all 5 of those rounds. Very dominant. He, again, another guy who's not the biggest puncher, but is a fantastic boxer. And he showed, yeah, I've got that power. And he was a bad man in there, and he really punished Mishoro. Got the 5th round finish. Really impressed me. Again, I know some people are saying, oh, not the best matchmaking. And Hitchins Kambosos was a mismatch. Cruz Mishoro was an IBF title eliminator. Those were the 2 next guys ready in the rankings to do that fight. That was not a mismatch. Sure, Cruz was a lot higher skill, but it wasn't like, he was choosing an easy fight. And, Cruz is now mandatory. He will get mandated to fight Raymond Murataya because the IBF, they really do a good job at that. And that's an amazing 50-50 fight. That is awesome that they're going to get Andy Cruz this world title shot in his 7th pro fight it'll be. And Murataya's first title defense is against somebody like Andy Cruz. I mean, these are both extremely great, promising young talents fighting for a world title. This is exactly what we need to see in boxing. So I love the fight. I'm really, really excited for it. Hopefully there's not too many issues with the deals to go on. Hopefully Matchroom and Top Rank can get something worked out. Maybe it's on a Saudi card, I'm not sure, but that is a tremendous, tremendous fight. And one that I'm really looking forward to. And, I keep on saying it, but the new era of the lightweight division is here. Abdullah Mason's about to fight Sam Noakes for the vacant WBO. Keyshawn Davis even is already moving up, which is crazy. Shakur and Tank are still there, but we'll see how long they stay at 135-4. Tank looks like he's on his way out of the sport. And, you've got all these young stars, and Shakur is still young as well. So these are the new guys, and lightweight division's in very good hands. But yeah, also on that card, a lot of prospects. Tara Moana did what he does, got another first-round knockout, and, does his dance. I really do want them to get him a bit of a challenge next. I know this guy was 9-0. He's meant to be a challenge, but he just ran through him. They need to get him a really decent fight, especially if Eddie Hearn's saying he wants him to fight Moses Atama for the world title in 2026. I don't understand how you're going to push him from doing a 6-rounder in middle of 2025 to fighting for a world title in 2026. Yeah, he needs to be moved a lot faster. And by the way, I'm not saying they need to move him fast. I think he's moving at a great pace right now. I just think that to say we want him to fight for a title next year, he's nowhere near on track to be fighting for a title next year with the pace you're having him fight at. So next fight, maybe you do an 8-rounder, maybe you do somebody with a little bit more of a decent profile. Just because the opposition he's been with, yeah, it's fun to see him knock him out, but I want to see him face a challenge. Zaquin Moses got himself another stoppage. He continues to be very impressive. Shakur's younger cousin, this is. Really, really great prospect. He says he's the best prospect in the sport. I don't know about that, but he has been very impressive so far. Nishant Dev had his 2nd fight, got a unanimous decision. He's got huge support in India. I do think that he's going to be very important for unlocking a new part of the world, really, for the sport, because there hasn't been any big boxer from India, not that I can think of really ever. So this is an Olympian. He's looked good through 2 fights. If he can go all the way, then that'd be huge. With how many people are in India, that's a huge, market to tap into, and he may be the guy to crack it. And then of course you have the pro debut of Adam Maka, an Englishman, on an English promotion, making his debut in New York City. Unexpected, but cool to see, and he looked great. He got himself a 2nd-round stoppage, and he said, yeah, I want to get the stoppage. I want to get the knockout on my pro debut, and he did it. So that was really great, and yeah, Just a really fun night of fights. Great night at the theater, and some solid wins for Richardson Hitchins and Andy Cruz. Moving on from that, we had BKFC and Mohegan Sun. A really awesome card. I just watched that one and caught up on it. Only one fight went the distance the whole night. Parker Porter got a great comeback KO in the first round. The main event against Dylan Kleckler. Kleckler knocked him down pretty early on in the round. Not a huge knockdown, but Porter, what I love about BKFC, he gets hurt. What does he do? He fights fire with fire and goes after him, and he puts him down like 30 seconds later, and Kleckler does not make the 10 count. So that was really fun. Co-main event, Josh Watson got a second round KO over Jorgen De Castro. Brendan Ward got upset by J.R. Rumley. I think that Ward was really fun to watch and was having some really good success. He just has no defense, and that cost him, and he got a huge cut and got beat up a bit. So you really need to work on your defense. But other than that, just really, really fun stuff going on in that card. Gary Bellato 3 was impressive, or the third, not 3. Who else? Randy Costa, Peter Barrett had a great first round stoppage. Joe Peters, Isaiah Carson, just so many fun fighters. Cito Navarro was the only decision, but he had a really fun 5-round performance. Pat Casey stopped John Howard with a really nasty eye cut, and Sergio Lopez as well in a battle of the Unks. That was just it was just a really fun night. The whole card, they did 11 fights in 3 hours, which is nuts. You just have that many stoppages, so many. I think it was there's what? How many fights? 11 fights in total. And if I'm correct, I think that only 1, 2, 3 of the fights saw the second round. That is crazy. 10 first round knockouts. That's unbelievable, and that's exactly what we love BKFC for. Speaking of some older fighters, we had 2 wins at bantamweight this weekend. Nonito Donaire is now the WBA interim bantamweight champion, which is ridiculous. I didn't watch the fight. I heard he didn't look good and still outboxed Andres Campos, which showed that Campos is not at a great level either. But Donaire is 42 and he's got himself an interim title. Don't really know how that was a championship, but he's now in line to face the winner of Daigo Higa versus Antonio Vargas, it seems. I'm curious if he'll get that fight. Maybe he will with his name, but just really no point in him still being in the game. But we'll see. Once he gets beaten by them, maybe he'll know. It's time to hang him up. But, getting this interim title shot, it's only going to give him confidence. And then, of course, you also had Juan Francisco Estrada, who had another seemingly dominant win. I can't remember the guy's name who he fought. Nobody notable. But, yeah, you've got Estrada, Chocolatito, and Donaire all in the same weight class now, all fighting when they probably should just be retiring. The only thing I can think of to do is have them fight each other. I know Estrada and Chocolatito fought each other enough, but throw Donaire in there, get some other fights going, and maybe we do see Estrada and Chocolatito fight each other again. It's just, I don't think any of them should be fighting. I definitely don't think any of them should be fighting the top competition, and young challengers and champions. So I think they should just fight each other and hang them up. Maybe have some big nights, but yeah, cool to see they're still winning. Now, probably next episode will come out after this next fight that we've got on Thursday morning. So I'll just talk about it now. Brian Norman Jr. returns in Japan on Thursday morning to defend his welterweight title against Jin Sasaki. And just speaking of Atlanta, hopefully he gets a win and they do another event here later this year with him headlining, especially considering that Boots is now moving up to 154. Brian Norman is a much bigger name at 147 now, and I know how does it really make him a bigger name? It just means that he's considered more highly in the division. He was before considered number 2 at 147 pounds, really. And I know you've got guys, like Devin Haney in the fold now, but Brian Norman is still a top welterweight. He's got a world title, and we'll see who they match up with the winner. But Norman Sasaki is a tremendous fight. This is one that I do think Norman should be able to win. Again, he's had some off nights in his career, so we'll see. But Sasaki is somebody who's really fun to watch, but has a lot of holes in his game. And Norman's somebody who likes to find those holes. And he's not perfect either, but he's a world champion, and he showed really good resolve and really good potential at his world level of defeats, and this is potentially his toughest fight of them all. We'll see, but I think that Norman should be able to come out of this one on top. I don't want to say if he gets a knockout. I think that is very possible with how much Sasaki gets hit, but I just know I do expect it to be a very, very fun fight, and one that I'm really looking forward to for the WBO welterweight strap. So, yeah, I'm picking Norman to win it, though, for sure. Co-main event, you got Christian Araneta returning to take on Thanangsok Simsri for the vacant IBF Light Flyweight Championship. Obviously, this is the title that was held by Masamichi Yabuki and has since been vacated as he moved up to flyweight and captured the IBF title there. So yeah, both these guys, I think it's a solid fight. I'm not too familiar with either, so I don't want to make a prediction. But yeah, that's your co-main event for the IBF 108 Championship. Should be a decent one. You've also got Sora Tanaka versus Takeru Kobata for the Oriental Pacific Boxing Federation, or the OPBF, I guess, welterweight championship. Tanaka 3-0, already fighting in a 12-rounder, so he's another one of those top Japanese prospects that just gets moved fastly. And then Yuya Oku versus Rhea Abe, former world title challenger for the vacant Japanese featherweight championship. Oku again 8-0-2. So solid fight card there. I'm guessing those will be the 4 fights shown on the ESPN Plus broadcast. We'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun night of fights. And yeah, I got Norman winning that championship. Moving on from there, we got a few tidbits of news we'll run through quickly and then wrap it up. Virgil Ortiz Jr., weirdly, his last 2 fights, which of course were both wins against Sergey Boachuk and Israel Madrimov, were both just for a few hours last week, changed to no contests. No reason was listed, and this is on BoxRec. But just for a few hours, they were changed from wins to no contests, and then promptly changed afterwards, and an apology was sent out by BoxRec. So we don't really know what this error was. I don't know if they were just messing around on there and, messed it up, but it's a little bit odd. And I'm kind of curious if there's some kind of investigation going on, if they found something, maybe Ortiz was, using a PED. I hope not, God forbid. I just want to, he's a really great fighter and a really nice guy, so hopefully I believe he's a clean fighter. I don't know. I just don't know what this no contest would be for, and I just have trouble believing that he's just randomly glitched. But hopefully we find out soon enough if there was anything worse in this situation. It was also announced that Jean Pascal will face Michael Cieslak on June 28th in Canada, not on the Mbili versus Suleski card, which is also in Canada the day before. But yeah, they're gonna fight for the WBC Interim Cruiserweight Championship, so they'll be mandatory for Badou Jack. Really solid fight at cruiserweight. It's interesting. The winner must defend against Yamil Peralta, who obviously fought for that exact belt against Ryan Rozicki, and the fight was a draw. Rozicki seems to have been left in the wind after he tried so long to get that title shot, and stuff kept on getting in the way. I guess they just said, "You're bad luck. We don't want you anymore." But yeah, so the winner is to defend against Peralta instead of actually getting their title. We know Jack is going to fight McCallion next, it seems, as that's been ordered for the rematch. And then we'll likely go into unification. So maybe WBC is trying to hold their mandatory patient and busy for a while to make that undisputed fight happen later on down the line, which I do like. But yeah, this is an interesting fight, really closely contested fight. I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I would probably be favoring Cieslak at the moment, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm going to try and tune in for that one. It sounds like it'll be fun. Jamal Hill is refusing to board his flight to Baku in Azerbaijan, which is a fight in on Saturday, as apparently he was flying over Israel and Iran, and he didn't want to with the, I don't really need to talk about it, but all the war going on over there and such, and the missile strikes. So he didn't want to board that flight. He was meant to go from Doha to Baku. I guess that they're maybe trying to find a background way for him, and maybe he's already gotten there. But as of earlier this morning, I had just seen the report that he was not getting on the flight. Which could cause some issues for him getting there. I do know that some of his team boarded the plane, but he himself did not. Hopefully, he's still able to get to Baku safely and soundly, and we can get that fight going, man, because it's a huge one, and I would hate for something like this to get in the way of it. Matchroom apparently have a show in Australia in August. Eddie Hearn just said that in the interview with Terry Moana after his win, saying he's got a big show there in August, and Terry Moana will feature on that. I'm very curious who would be featured on that card, because Jaya Pataya just fought. He won't be on that. Terry Moana just fought. Justice Hooney just fought. Liam Paro, who was with Matchroom, seemingly has left to go to No Limit, and even if he's come back, he's got a fight in a few weeks. He's not going to be on it. Connor Wallace just fought. Sky Nicholson's fighting July 5th. George Kambosos just fought. who is headlining this card? All of Eddie's Australians are out. They're all had fights before this. So I'm really curious who they choose to do it. There's no way it's going to be Opetaia versus Zurdo. My best guess is that Conor Walsh just had an 8-rounder. Maybe they've got a big fight lined up for him at 175 pounds. I have no idea who they'd be against or will be on the line. He is very highly rated with the IBF. Maybe it's some kind of interim title fight against Michael Effort. I think that's his first name, who's obviously the mandatory for Beterbiev, or excuse me, not Beterbiev anymore, for Bivol. And maybe that's the fight. It's for like an interim or title eliminator, as I believe they are 1-2 in the division. So maybe that's it. But yeah, I really don't know who else would be on this card. And I'm curious to see what happens with it. But yeah, moving on from there, we also got the announcement of MVP signing WBA bantamweight champion Stephanie Hahn. Obviously they had Beatrice Ferreira on their show last Saturday. She won her, her title defense, and then Hahn got in the ring after. They faced off. Seemingly they want to make that unification. Obviously Ferreira is not actually with MVP. She's still a Matchroom fighter. For whatever reason, she just headlined that show because they didn't have anything for her over at Matchroom at DAZN, I guess. But anyways, Ferreira and Hahn seemingly want to fight. Hopefully they can get that sorted and get that on an MVP show because they've always got the money to make that happen. But I don't know. I love MVP and how much they're signing all these women's champions. They have actually like half of the women's world champions. It's unbelievable. I'm just kind of worried, do they have the amount of events to service them? Because right now they've got their Netflix events, like stuff like Taylor Serrano 3, which sure you have a lot, but you have a lot more women's world champions that aren't going to be on that card. And you've got your stuff like Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., their big Jake Paul pay-per-views. Outside of that, though, how many events are they doing? The most valuable prospects are fun, but those aren't prospect fights anymore if it's all women's world champions. So they need to start stepping up their level, making more in-between type events, I guess you could say, instead of just doing Career Royale or pay-per-view Netflix level events. Because that's what they're doing in the moment. I think you need to find a middle ground and just, put together some decent, smaller arena, Vegas type fights. And when I say Vegas, I mean like Vegas casino fights. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just, I don't know. I'm just worried that they don't have the amount of events to service the amount of fighters they're signing. But hopefully this means it'll be an uptick in the amount of shows they put on. But lastly, Franco Tenaglia is out of his title defense against Tony Soto, scheduled for this Saturday at BKFC Texas. This is a huge bummer. They obviously did a fantastic first fight in October in Spain. And yeah, he's now out. Ben Bonner, who's 3-1, is going to step in to face Soto in what is, as of now, a non-title fight. I did see Dave Feldman is considering making it a title fight, which means stripping Tenaglia. Maybe he's saying he'll be out for a while. He had a visa issue, so it's not like it's an injury, but maybe they're upset with Tenaglia and are going to strip him. So it could be Benner versus Soto for the vacant lightweight championship. I think it's lightweight at least. But, we'll see. It's still a really solid card. It is one of their bigger cards that they're putting together. But we'll see what they end up choosing to do with this event. But yeah, it's gonna be or with this fight, and see if it's a title fight or not. But still a decent save, I guess. And I am bummed it won't be Tenaglia Soto too. But yeah, it's just another one of those fights that one of the better fights on the BKFC calendar, kind of similar to the Chris Camozzi Lorenzo Hunt rematch that just a week or two before gets canceled, and it just kind of sucks. But yeah, hopeful for a big event there this weekend and some fun fights on it, as I'm sure there will be. And then lastly, Eddie Hearn, I saw said in an interview that negotiations have started for a David Benavidez-Callum Smith world title fight, and that an offer was sent by PBC for that fight, which is great news because Benavidez, had his win over David Morrell 4 months ago, and we haven't heard about what's next for him. And I would like that to be Smith. I think that they're 3-4 in the division. We know Bivol and Beterbiev are going to go for the trilogy later this year. So in the meantime, get Benavidez busy, get him a big fight, and that's Callum Smith. Don't do Anthony Yard. Have Anthony Yard fight, Joshua Buatsi. I think that Smith deserves the Benavidez fight. So that's my 2 cents on it. Hopefully they can get that done and make that fight because it's a great one. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for listening. Episode 63 will come out later this week, probably on Thursday, where we'll talk about Norman versus Sasaki and preview the weekend's action. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed listening. I enjoyed talking, and yeah, enjoy the fights over the next few days. Hopefully some crazy news happens. I don't really know, but thank you so much for listening, and peace out.